Alright, so this is how to install a subsystem into a 2010 Lincoln MKZ. So, first thing you gotta do is you gotta run the power wire for your sub. And so, if you look up under here, I saw another YouTube video where the guy pulled this plastic thing out here and then drilled a hole right there. But I was looking around and I noticed, and I already have it run, but there's a little plastic, let me get my flashlight up there. There's a little plastic tab sort of dealio up here that's already there, and it's made to have a hole drilled through it. There's actually, 1 second here. There's I have it right here. This piece was like already pre-stamped out. You just had to rip it out where the tabs were. And I just ripped it out of there, and lo and behold, there's this like plastic piece. And then on the other side, I pulled the battery out here. There's aluminum foil, and you peel that back, and all it is just a plastic little piece that's basically just made to be drilled through it. So all I did was drill a hole through it, and now I got my power wire coming out here. So next step is to run it through the back of the car. So to get the weather stripping out, basically you just take a screwdriver and you just very carefully pry up. You be careful where you pry because it's held down with clips. But once you get it started, then you can just take your thumbs and push up, and the weather stripping and the plastic will all start to come out. And then you can kind of see where you could potentially run your speaker wire, or speaker power wire, I should say. So we started running and we pulled a bunch of this up. It all clips in the same way. And we just ran it right underneath there. And you peel this back, and running it through here is kind of a pain in the ass. And also, so I guess there's a little clip up here that clips into that. Kind of broke that, but whatever. I'll just sort of JB weld it back together if I can see it. But I'll just maybe throw some JB weld. I mean, I'll just throw it back in place and it'll be fine. But whatever. We get through that. I took a long piece of metal. In this case, I used my magnet. Shoved it through this hole here, and then I taped the other end to there, and I just pulled it all the way through. Put the seats back, pull this thing out here. See that? And so we'll just be running it under there and into the back. And some useful thing, kind of pulled that up a little bit more, and then look into the back here. So the cable has to come through there. Just doing the old shove the stick through the hole, tape it to the end, and pull it out the other end kind of dealio right here. So, all right, little update. So we tucked all the molding back together. There we go. We ran it here. Kind of tucked it in this little thing here. This little gap. Can't really see it, but. And then it comes up around the top, and stick this back here, and it comes out nice and clean. So now we got to move on to the next part. Alrighty, so 12 hours later. So I picked up this SNI 35 line output converter. Everybody was saying that the stock line input converter on the Rockville subwoofers was not the greatest, and that you should get one of these. And so that's what I did. Wired it up to the left and the right speakers, and I soldered all that stuff in and taped it up. Now I've been looking for a line out, or a remote turn on connection, and instead of rerunning all the wire because I forgot to run the remote turn on to begin with, I decided to rip up the back and see what I could do here. So I believe this is the fuel pump wiring harness, and I tested with my electrical tester here, and it's kind of hard to tell, but the green wire is constant 12-volt power. I'm not entirely sure what the yellow one is, or the white one, or the red one, but the gray one is I'm assuming that's a relay wire switch for the fuel pump, because when the key is not in the ignition, it's off, there's no power to it, and then when the key is in the ignition, just in the accessory position, and when it's turned on, this wire has 5 volts going to it, whereas the green wire has 12 volts going on it all the time. So I temporarily wired a little wire to my remote turn on switch and connected it to here with the key in the ignition and turned to the accessory position, as well as the turned on the car, and it seemed to work. So that's what I'm going to be wiring it to. Also, I should note, I ran the cable up, taped it, fastened it, and it works pretty good. Alright, so what's been done so far is I've wired it up and tested it out. So, like I said before, we got our left and our right kind of just janky taped down the middle for now. They go into our SN35, which then goes into the input right there. Then we have our power, our remote turn on, and our ground, and then we have our 2 speaker wires. So it took me a little bit of research to figure out how to tune the amplifier, but basically what you do is you go turn your volume on your car to max, or the highest it'll go before it starts to distort, and then you play 40 hertz signal continuously, and make sure you turn all your main car speakers off, and then unplug these here before you play the 40 hertz. So you play the 40 hertz, but before you do that, you take these out, and you take your multimeter and you take your 2 probes, and you put each of these probes on each of those pins there. It doesn't matter which one. Then you set it to AC volts about that big or so, and then so these are 4 ohm speakers with 200 watts of power. So the math that you're going to do to tune the gain on your amplifier is going to be the square root of 800, because 4 ohms times 200 watts, that's 800. So the square root of that ends up being about 28 or 26, I can't remember, 28 or 26, and that's going to be the voltage that you want. So that you want to set. So basically what you do is you turn this all the way down, you turn this all the way down, you turn this all the way up, and this all the way down. You make sure this is switched to the left, and then so you play the 40 hertz signal with your probes on, so there's no speakers disconnected. You look at your multimeter, and you basically just turn this knob to the right until your multimeter reads 26 or 28 volts in my particular case. It may be 30, 40, depending on what y'all got going. So, but this is for the Rockville dual 10-inch sub kit. And then once you do that, then the low pass filter kind of gets set to like whatever you feel is good. So I kind of just put it to maybe, I don't know, maybe like 80-ish hertz, around there, something like that. And then the subsonic I tried to do like 30 hertz, because that's what looked pretty good. And then once you do that, and it should work pretty good, and it does. I'm just gonna, so I haven't wired this thing through the car, I just kind of got it strung janky ways through here. So we'll just turn the car on here. Okay, so now this thing is on. Let's turn this like 2 notches away from the max, but basically maximum there. Let's connect my phone. we're gonna play a song here real quick. And I've turned the volumes mostly up. So yeah, it works decently for, you know, a little under 200 or like right at 200 for the whole thing. So I'm pretty satisfied with it. So peace. Right, so here we have like a 7 or 8 month update. I actually installed these subs when it was like May of last year, and right now I'm in a parking garage and it's winter and it's cold and it's 23 degrees. So let me pop the trunk and show you what I got going on back here. As you can see, my car is almost as salty as my personality is sometimes. Anywho, so update is mounted everything on the side here, added a few components. So what did I do? So after about 2 months of using this Rockville 10-inch sub system that I got for I don't know, it was like under $200 or something like that, I started to realize, because I tapped into the rear speakers using this pull it out here, this SN35 line output converter, which is now going to be tucked back there, that I had to fade the sound to the rears a lot more in order to allow the line output converter to have a high enough signal to send to the amplifier, which would then send it to the subwoofers. Essentially, I couldn't have an equal distribution, am I saying that right? Distribution of sound to all the speakers in the car, because I had to fade it to the rears to feed this thing. So I was like, okay, so we need more power, so what do we need to do here? So the first thing I did is I went out and I got a little RCA Preamp. There's a piece of tape there to hold the knob where I wanted it to go, but essentially what it does is the blue RCA cable comes from the or the SN35, goes into there. I turn it up almost all the way, but I never turn things completely all the way up because you might destroy something or the internal components. Anywho, and then from out of there goes into the amplifier. However, I have these two gold things. What are these? So these are actually 70 hertz low pass filters, or otherwise they're known as FMODs. And the reason I added those is because when I plugged this thing in, I realized that, you know, this amplifier is not the most expensive amplifier in the world. You can definitely tell it that it's not the most expensive amplifier in the world because it doesn't filter out the high frequencies, especially when you're tapping in the rear speakers. Now, normally you're supposed to tap into the head unit. I didn't want to tear my head unit apart because it's a pain in the ass to do on these cars, but so I tapped in the rears, and so I had to compensate. So I got these 70 hertz low pass filters. I did purchase 50 hertz low pass filters as well, and then I plugged them in line in different combinations, and those really reduced the signal. So I stuck with the 70s, plugged those right in, and yeah, so it works really well. It sounds really good. Again, especially considering that I just tapped into the rear speakers instead of actually running it from the actual sub head unit output like you're supposed to. And actually the reason for that is because I forgot to do that, / didn't want to do it because of pain in the ass. So without further ado, I shall play some music here. Alright, so I had a little technical difficulty trying to play music and take a video at the same time. Let me do it real quick.
So yeah, it works pretty well. I think the next thing that I will do to make the system sound even better, it sounds amazing for the price of the components and what I did to get it together, but I think I might invest in a digital bass enhancer, but I don't know, it sounds pretty good. Also, one last quick note on this thing. So this was actually a 12 volt RCA preamp that was meant to be plugged into the wall, but I made sure that it was 12 volts. Then all I did is I snipped the wall wart off, and then I tapped it into the battery terminals over here, and it's just always on. There's no off switch, and that's fine. This thing costs like $15. So for about a little over $200, you can have yourself a really nice sounding system that you can just tap into the rear speakers with, and have a great time listening to those lows. Also, these are the settings that I have for my my amplifier, in case anybody wants to copy these if they don't know how to tune their amplifier. That's in the earlier part of this video. So, but anywho, so peace.